Hi, Andy XL, back with the first of three podcasts that I'm going to put out today. Very busy boy. And the first one's going to be my state of the tournament address, which is going to look at my top 10 teams to win the tournament as of after the first game for every team that were completed last night. All 42 teams have now played. So I'm going to start with my top 10 teams to win the tournament, which takes into account how, like I say, how I saw all 48 teams pre-tournament and how they performed in their opening games. As I said before the tournament started, there is a tendency to overreact to poor results for a team amongst the favourites or to overreact to a team winning well but still not having the squad to consistently beat teams in the competition. So here goes with my top 10. Still at one, and to be honest, clear number one for me are France. Came into the tournament as pre-tournament favourites and could not have been more impressive, particularly in the second half against a decent Senegal side. They just look so awesome offensively in the second half that you've got to say that France are still the team that everybody's going to have to beat. At two, I've got England following their impressive 4-2 win over Croatia that really underlined everything I thought about England. They're going to be really, really good going forward, and they were last night. Even better than that, they were excellent. They could have scored seven or eight, but for an inspired Croatian goalkeeper. In the first half, the defensive frailties were there to be seen, and to a certain extent, they were still relevant in the second half at times. Even very late in the game in injury time, they could have easily conceded a third goal, but for a heroic Harry Kane block. But, you know, they may have time now to iron out those problems against the likes of Ghana and Panama while still being devastating on attack in attack. So for me, England are one of the tournament favourites. Three, I'm moving Argentina up to three. Now, I'm going to put my hand up and say I may have underestimated the Argentinians. When you look back and think how easily when they won that South American qualifying group, they probably are the best team in the South America. And they showed that in a really strong first game performance, winning 3-0, getting a hat trick from Lionel Messi. What more could they have asked for? So Argentina emerges one of my big three to win the tournament now. They join that group for me right now, um, ahead of Brazil, who dropped to four after their draw with Morocco. And that was disappointing in the sense that Morocco were probably the better team in that game. And Brazil looked to have major issues in midfield in terms of ball retention, legs getting around the field. They probably won't have an issue against the weaker teams in that regard. But when they come up against the better teams late in the tournament, that's a real issue for them and a real concern that ultimately I think could be their downfall. I've got Morocco at five. As I said, even though they're a better team in the draw against Brazil, it's still for them to show that they have the star quality and the absolute top level ability to win this tournament. Yes, they did really well to get to the semi-final last time around, but have they got that extra bit to get that through a semi-final and then win a final? So I've got them at five. At six, I've got Spain, who obviously had a disappointing draw, the shock of the first round in many ways to draw with Cape Verde. But I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say Spain have no chance of winning, which some will do ridiculously. You know, in most times, apart from that heroic goalkeeping performance by the Cape Verde goalkeeper at 40 years of age, um, Spain would have won that game 1, 2, 3, 4-0, and nobody would be worried about them really. So I don't think there's much need to worry, but it is an underlying concern that can they, score the goals to win this tournament. Not a concern scoring goals in the first game with Germany, who obviously knocked in seven against lowly Curacao. Now, again, this whilst I'm not going overboard about Germany scoring seven against Curacao, the the style they did that in has to be said to be impressive. And when you look through their squad, it's that old saying, isn't it? Never underestimate the Germans, never rule them out. They have to have a chance of winning this tournament. I'm not putting them in the top bracket after a 7-1 win over Curacao, but I will say they've got a chance. At eight, I've got Portugal, another team who had a disappointing draw in their opening game. Now, I'm going to say this in my other podcast as well, and I expect plenty of backlash against this, or maybe one or two people will agree with me. Essentially, on the evidence of their first game, they're a 10-man team with an exceptionally gifted goal hanger standing up front. That's all Cristiano Ronaldo did last night, was basically stand offside all night, hoping the defenders wouldn't see him, and then when they drop back, he gets into the open. He basically played no part in the game whatsoever, apart from that. It annoys me in the sense that the offside rule hundreds of years ago was brought in to specifically stop players doing that. And now we've got a situation where it's allowed to do it because he's not active in that phase. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, that's Portugal. Coming back to Portugal, they just didn't show enough last night. They've got plenty of talent in midfield, but they look to me like a team that's making the mistake that England have made in past tournaments. They're trying to find a way to squeeze all that talent into the same team, but it doesn't actually functionally work, and that was evidenced last night. Right, 9. The USA make it into my top 10. Now, couldn't have been more impressive than they were in dispatching Paraguay, but all the ridiculous stateside talk about now they're the team to beat in the tournament. Give me a break. But come on, USA are not a football or soccer powerhouse, and they're still not just because they beat Paraguay 4-1. But they are on home territory, and they got off to an impressive start, so they did warrant a place in my top 10. But they're still, at best, what big outsiders to win this tournament. But they do have a chance of progressing through the knockout stages to an extent. And at 10, the Netherlands, they drew their opening game with Japan, and Japan came in strong late in that game. So, it was touch and go whether I put Netherlands or Japan in at 10 here, but I've gone for the Dutch. Um, Again, they look decent, but nothing great. So I'm going to squeeze them in at 10 in my rankings after round one. I'll come back and update this after. Um, I'll probably update it after each day. Actually, now I'll just include it in my daily podcast. What the current top 10 are. So, for instance, today, who have we got in action in this top 10 today? Oh, I can't remember. I haven't got the fixtures in front of me. She's a bad boy. Should know this. Right, who have we got today? Uh, who can feature in this? In truth, there's nobody playing today that's probably going to feature. South Korea. If South Korea pulled over a win over Mexico, they might squeeze their way into my top 10. But apart from that, there's none of the top 10 playing today. So anyway, that wraps this one up. Um, as I say, that's my top 10. Next, if you stay tuned, you'll get a piece which goes through each of the groups and the state of the group, which I'm going to try and whistle through in one podcast. All right, I'll see you soon.